Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is never going to beat these he can't carry his own movie allegations. After months of rumors about how Sony and Marvel were at odds about how to proceed with the Spider-Man franchise, should they go street level or should they go large multiverse event film once again? Well, if this new rumor is true, it appears that Sony has won that argument. Let's discuss.
Our content sucks. Our content sucks.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
When I stop and think about the character of Spider-Man, outside of Batman, there is no comic book character that commands more attention. He is quite literally the crown jewel of Marvel, and he should be treated as such. And yet, since this Sony and Marvel partnership has come about, and they decided to share the rights to the character, to me, he has yet to feel like the big deal that he should.
Not impressed.
Of course, there was the initial hype when he was first introduced in Civil War, but once he got the opportunity to make a name for himself in his own films, in my opinion, Sony and Marvel completely dropped the ball when it comes to establishing this character. Tony Stark held his hand in Homecoming. Nick Fury held his hand in Far From Home. Doctor Strange held his hand in No Way Home. He was in 2 Avengers movies where his biggest contribution and most memorable scene is when he disappears. And his biggest movie was basically being held up by the return of 2 more beloved Spider-Men.
Look at little Goblin Jr. Gonna cry?
So I ask the question again, where exactly is Tom Holland's definitive moment? Who is his definitive villain? Have Sony and Marvel properly portrayed the self-made aspect to this character that made him so relatable? I've already said this many times before, and I'll say it again here. The last few moments of No Way Home, where Peter jumps out the window and he's running across the snowy rooftops in his new Spider-Man suit, is the most Spider-Man that Tom Holland's Spider-Man has ever felt. And even though I've had my issues with Tom's portrayal up until that point, in the back of my mind I was thinking, okay, now we're going to get to see him be the Spider-Man he should have been from the beginning. To No Way Home's credit, I didn't think it was that great of a movie, but it did at least attempt to address some of the criticisms against Tom Holland's Spider-Man, if only briefly. So when it looked like Tom Holland's Spider-Man was essentially being written out of the MCU to an extent at the end of No Way Home, I said finally we are going to get to see him stand on his own 2 feet. He's going to have to figure some out on his own.
I'm having trouble.
And learn to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that we all know and love as he saves people around New York City. But if these new rumors are true, it appears that that won't be happening, and we're just going to be getting more of the same with Spider-Man 4. According to industry leaker Daniel Reichman, the upcoming Spider-Man 4 will not be a street-level Spider-Man film. It will once again be a multiverse-based story, which could point to the possibility of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire returning once again. So the back to basics, or back to his roots approach that Marvel Studios reportedly wanted is apparently out the window, as Sony wants to try to capitalize on some of that sweet No Way Home nostalgia money once again.
Show me the money.
Now, after Deadpool and Wolverine, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Marvel Studios completely changed their mind and actually decided to double down on the cameos and multiverse bullshit. Because let's be honest, at this point, it's pretty much all they have, and it does sound like something that they would do. But I do know that at one point, Marvel was planning on using Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in Secret Wars. But I don't know if that plan is still on the table. But here's what I do know. This idea does nothing to help the perception of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. What does it look like that every single time Tom's Spider-Man looks like he's about to break through that glass ceiling, only to have Sony and Marvel try to shoehorn more Spider-Men or more heroes into his story once again? I don't know about anybody else, but this feels like they do not have a ton of confidence in Tom Holland's Spider-Man to pull in audiences in the way that they want. And a big reason for that, in my opinion, is that they have done a poor job establishing him by doing things just like this.
It's true.
Plus, you can't help but feel like a Tobey and Andrew return at this point isn't exactly going to hit the same way that it did in No Way Home. Because it's already been done. It's difficult to capture that same lightning in a bottle again. Especially when it comes to getting audiences to respond to these fan service moments in the same way. And I just don't know how much story potential is there with yet another multiverse concept. I mean, I get it, people loved Deadpool and Wolverine, but even its biggest fans can admit that it was lacking from a story perspective. It was propped up by nostalgia, cameos, and Easter eggs, and I just don't know if that type of entertainment is sustainable long term.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It was also floating around on X that the villains of this upcoming Spider-Man 4 multiverse story will be Venom and the Inheritors. Now, I can't say that I'm all that familiar with the Inheritors, but that in itself sounds like a problem, especially when you consider the rich rogues gallery that Spider-Man has. But as far as Venom goes, that opens up a whole new can of worms. Is this just a tactic to get people to go see the third Venom movie? Because last I heard, Tom Hardy was done with the character after that movie. So if this rumor is true, will the Venom in Spider-Man 4 be a new Venom? The way things are going, it's entirely possible that Topher Grace's Venom will return, so people can magically act like they've always liked him too. Don't get me wrong, we are well overdue for Venom and Spidey to be sharing the big screen together. But if it's anything like the Sony-led Carnage vs. Venom movie, then I'm not interested.
How can you not care?
Like this.
If I'm being 100% honest, and I always am, this whole thing sounds like nothing but desperation. I think Marvel Studios and Sony, to an extent, are terrified of another movie underperforming. So terrified that they are willing to do literally anything to make sure that doesn't happen, including adding things to a movie that it does not need. Spider-Man is an amazing character, beloved by almost everyone, myself included. He doesn't need all of these gimmicks and tricks to succeed. All he really needs is a good story, some character development, and a decent villain to fight, and most likely, people are going to show up. But Marvel and Sony would have to put in the work and hire competent people to execute that vision. And right now, it doesn't feel like they have the patience to do that. They would rather slap a multiverse band-aid on the situation and hope nobody notices.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.